Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you are new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day. So if you're looking for some reading inspiration, if you're looking to follow book reviews, if you just want to know what other people are reading, then feel free to stick around. Now let's talk about today's book. Today I am going to be reviewing volume 16 in the series that I have been reading for a while. No matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault I'm not popular by Nico Tanigawa. So I have been reading this series for a while. This is actually a reread. I read this series all the way up to volume 16 back in 2021, but then I moved and I stopped reading the series because library districts and stuff like that. So I am now rereading the series, and volume 16 is as far as I got back in 2021. So after volume 16, all the videos from here on out will not be rereads for me, but I did read up to this volume a couple years ago. Volume 16 is quite a ways into the series, so I'm going to give a slight recap of what's been going on in the series thus far. We have been following our main character Tomoko, who is this girl here. Tomoko went into high school with high expectations. She thought she was going to be the high school girl. She thought she was going to have all the friends. She was going to be popular and pretty and well-liked, and boys would be throwing themselves at her. However, things did not exactly work out as planned. Tomoko has struggled with isolation, loneliness, social anxiety, depression, quite a number of deep, dark things, especially closer to the beginning of the series. But this series is really about growth of a person, and Tomoko has experienced wonderful growth as a person. This growth, however, has been very incremental, and our main character, Tomoko, is flawed, so she doesn't do everything perfectly, but she has slowly but surely been working to be a better person. She's made connections with her classmates. She has been learning that not everyone is as she's initially judged them to be, and she's reaching out and becoming a more connected person. Tomoko, our main character, is now in her third year of high school. She, especially after one particularly notable class trip, has become very connected with her class and now has a group that she can spend time with and associate with and be friends with. And those connections have really been made a huge positive impact in Tomoko's life and have really shaped how she views her high school years. Volume 16 has two main parts, and the first part is the sports tournament, which we're going to talk about first. So the sports tournament is this thing that started in volume 15. It's not really the sports festival, if I understand correctly. It's just another time for the different classes to compete against one another in various sports events. And Tomoko is assigned to the ping pong tournament, so she and her friends and her class and everyone else are playing ping pong, and they're also spending this time connecting with one another. Previously, when Tomoko was it wasn't this, but it was the sports festival, I believe, earlier in the series, she spent a lot of time just playing around by herself. She didn't have any connection, so there's a sharp contrast between this sports tournament and the previous sports festival that she participated in. That being said, Tomoko is still learning new things about her classmates. She still has a lot of preconceived ideas. She still has a lot of judgments about certain things, and she's having to kind of unlearn some of these behaviors. For example, Tomoko has kind of judged a lot of girls as superficial, or she thinks they're stupid, or she thinks they're all just focused on boys. She kind of lumps people together as the same. She doesn't really see them always as distinct individuals. I think that's getting better as she gets to know them. I feel like the art style reflects that when looking at classmates. It's not just a mass of people, but we're starting to see individual people. But Tomoko is still working on this. I feel like in volume 16, during the sports festival, as she talks to people, she starts to realize all these nuances and these different relationships and connections that all the other people have, which I feel like pretty obvious to an outside person. Of course, different friend groups have different nuances and relationships and connections, and who knows who and who's mad at who and who's upset with who and how everyone connects and relates to one another. But Tomoko, who's kind of been outside social circles for quite a long time, quite a large portion of her life, she hasn't really had a big friend circle like she has now. She is suddenly realizing all these things, and it's kind of a growth of a different variety. She's starting to be involved. What happens when there's problems in a friend group? How can we communicate? How can we resolve conflict amongst friends? All these sort of things that she really hasn't had to get involved with before, and maybe she just kind of dismissed when looking at other people and their perfect lives. She's now having to get involved with and realize that these aren't just superficial masses of people, but they're real people with, they are real people. They're people with nuance and their own problems and preferences and connections and relationships that all kind of mix together in the way that a friend circle does, which I feel like is something new for Tomoko. Now, the second half of this volume is quite interesting because it revolves around a situation that Tomoko gets herself in. And I feel like it also shows how far Tomoko has come, how much growth Tomoko has experienced. So Tomoko has this friend that she calls a delinquent who sometimes does things that are, yeah, perceived negatively by society, let's just say. And they wind up riding home on her bike, her little motorbike, moped, I forget what it was, one evening. But that is actually against school rules to do, and someone caught them on camera and reported them to the school. So Tomoko is facing suspension. In fact, she does get 1 week suspension with her counterpart, and they have to sit in a room by themselves and study. I feel like this is an interesting moment because we start to see that Tomoko's connections and her growth all come to a head. Again, this has happened several times in this series, but when she's in this room by herself, she's thinking that previously, earlier, first year of high school, she would have almost given anything to just have to sit alone in a room by herself and not do anything. She would have liked that. She wouldn't have minded that. But now she really misses that classroom environment that she so hated earlier in the series. Also, we see that even though the teachers tell them not to contact her, she gets a lot of messages and contacts from people asking if she's okay. And I feel like even though Tomoko, I don't think, says anything about this, earlier in the series, if Tomoko had been suspended, there wouldn't have been anyone to text her or call her or talk to her because she didn't have those connections with her classmates. So I feel like this suspension, which is still going on by the end of volume 16, so I have to assume continues into volume 17, kind of shows again how far Tomoko has come, how many friends she's developed, how many different connections she has, and just how much she's grown as a person, which I really, really appreciate. I'm actually really excited for volume 17. Again, that will not be a reread, that will be something completely fresh. So I'm excited to see where the series goes from here. I want to know what happens. I want to see how the suspension concludes. Also, we're closing in on the end of Tomoko's 3rd year, so I want to see how that concludes, how these connections grow, and how Tomoko continues to grow as a person. If you have any comments about these series, I'd love to hear it. Please put it in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for manga series that you think I should be reading, I'd love to get those too. So please put those in the comments below too so I can take a look and see what you guys like to read and what you think I should be reading. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.